0. Congratulations, Representative Houston. Brings us to 1523, search fee for public records. And Representative Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. House Bill 1523 is a search fee for public records request. The bill actually has two sections to it. The first directs if, in fact, a county has a document that they have electronically, then they need to provide it electronically. And I think we're getting to that place anyway, because it's so much easier and quicker to send it forward. But we're just putting that in place. If they do not have the form electronically, they are not required to do program changes or set up something to require it. They can, but they aren't required to do that. The language also exempts the county recorder's office. The county recorder's office currently depends greatly on their copying fees for their budgets. Many of the county councils have now reduced their county general fund because of the money that they take in off their copying fees. So we didn't want to be getting in the middle of that. The second part is imposing a search fee. If there's over 2 hour time to have to spend doing the research, then you can do one of two things. You could either charge a $20 per hour, or the cost of the salary of the person who's actually providing that, if it's less. Those are the two provisions that we have that we're presenting to you, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And appreciate your support and your time for hearing this.
Thank you. Any questions for Representative Richardson? Representative Shackelford?
I noticed, thank you. I noticed in the fiscal there's no data on how much these searches usually cost, or what does the searches look like over 2 hours. Do you have any information on how much it's currently costing?
Well, they're not charging now, so there is no data to. This would be starting a new procedure. What happens now is they may come in the office and say, I want all of the records for a court case that's been going on for 10 years, and they could they could spend an afternoon preparing that. And so I think it's just to try to help with the counties that are providing that now.
And do you know about how many requests they're getting?
Oh, I would say every county office has several requests that can get over a 2 hour, maybe not every day, but I mean, weekly there's would be numerous opportunities for someone to walk in and do that. And I think once, sometimes they just do it rather than them spend the time going through and looking for the 3 things they want. They think it's easier just to say, well, just give me the whole file. And because we don't charge a fee for that, it becomes a burden on the counties.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
As a former county auditor, I can tell you I like this bill. People will come in and ask for records in the old minutes that are in books, and you have to go back, your employees have to go back, and it takes forever to find it because they don't know when exactly. And the copies, we only charge, our ordinance was first 5 are free and a nickel for each one after. So that's all we get. And we could spend hours looking for something. We tell them they can come in and do it themselves, but most of them don't want to. So I really do like this bill.
Scoring brownie points with Mama Richardson, is that?
Would you like to? Well, I would like to co-op. Yes.
So, Representative Rich, I know you kept referring to county, but this would also apply to cities and towns, correct?
That's because of my background. Yes,
Yeah.
it would.
And can you explain why we're excluding recorders?
Yes, the county recorders, they get a copying fee and a perpetuation fee, I believe it's called. And that fee, once over the last several years now, county councils generally will reduce their budget out of the county general fund by the amount they have in that perpetuation fund. So we did not want to, we may feel that it should come all out of the county general fund, but that is not what's happening right now. And we just did not want to get involved in messing that up.
Thank you for the explanation. Any other questions? Great, thank you. We have one individual signed up to testify, Steve Key.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Steve Key with the Hoosier State Press Association, and we rise in support of this bill. This bill originated with a conversation that I had with Representative Brian Bosma a few years ago, and the issues that you're raising have been a problem for a long time with these voluminous requests. And so the Hoosier State Press Association worked with the speaker on drafting this language. This language has been before the legislature before. In fact, in 2015, it passed both the Senate and the House and was surprisingly vetoed by the governor. The year before that, the language had also passed through the House and then there, but there was a second reading amendment that had been added on the Senate that caused it problems with the recorders in the conference committee. So we're trying to keep it clean. We think that this is a fair bill. What it will do is it will make people be a little bit more focused when they make a records request, and so that they'll use a rifle approach rather than a shotgun approach. So I think that that'll save time for local and state government agencies. It'll really save time for the person making the request, because instead of looking through 1,000 pages trying to find the 3 they need, they'll only be looking at 10 or 15. And we're personally, we're more excited about the ability for people now to get electronic records in that format. So if they want the Excel spreadsheet of the town budget or the county budget, they can get it as an Excel spreadsheet, and if a reporter wants to compare that town budget to another town budget, it'll be much easier than having to go in, get a paper copy, and then try to recreate things. So we see it as a win-win for local government and for citizens, and we're in support of it. And answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions for Mr. Key? Thank you. Anybody else want to testify on House Bill 1523 that did not sign up? Hi, David. Welcome to the People's House. This is a new process we have. There's forms at the end of the table.
I kind of came in just a little bit late there, but David Bodorf with the Association of Indiana Counties. Appreciate Representative Richardson bringing this bill forward, and for the exclusion for the Recorder's Office. He explained that perfectly, that their office is pretty much funded out of the documents that are recorded and the copies they make available, either electronic or in paper copies. So rise in support of the bill. Be happy to answer any questions. I think most offices try to provide information electronically when a taxpayer requests it in that format. We are seeing more requests from groups like Zillow or Amazon or somebody like that who wants a voluminous request. Usually that's going through the Recorder's Office at this point, so we're kind of keeping an eye on that issue, but we do rise in support of the bill.
Thank you, David. Any questions for David? Thank you. You know, Steve, I really appreciate your testimony on this. I'll just say this, what is this, my second or third time now of putting this bill through this committee? And unless it's changed, I don't think it's the media that's the number one requester of a lot of these public records. It's political parties. I remember the first time that I ran, I was dear friends with the county auditor, and she said, "Dear Lord, I've had so many people up here going through the records, requesting everything from during the time you were sheriff." And they were there for like a week and a half requesting all this stuff. I mean, it's just, it's not for me to decide whether it's valid or not, but it's not always the press. It's political parties that are causing a lot of that. I know I had a mayor in particular was at a point they said that they had to, he was about ready to hire somebody full-time just to handle public records requests. So everybody testify, want to testify? Great. Seeing none, Representative Richardson, would you like to close?
Once again for hearing the bill, and I do have 2 more spots on my bill if anyone's interested.
Thank you for adding me to your bill, Representative Richardson. I appreciate that. Thank you. Discussion amongst the committee. Will the committee?
Second.
A motion is second. Call the roll.
Representative Stemler? Excused.
Excused.
Representative Smith?
Excused.
Representative Bartlett?
Excused.
Representative Shackelford?
No.
Representative Mahan?
Yes.
Representative Cook?
Excused.
Representative Pressel?
Yes.
Representative McNamara?
Yes.
Representative Miller?
Yes.
Representative Cherry?
Yes.
Representative Engelmann?
Yes.
Representative Lucas?
Excused.
Representative Young?
Yes.
7-1.
Passes 7-1. Congratulations, Representative Richardson. That takes us to our final bill, and I see that Representative Ober has blessed us with his presence. So, Representative Ober, I'm just going to leave it to your discretion if you just want to jump in on amendment number 2. Just a reminder to the committee, we did amendment number 1 last week, made a part of the bill. So just go at your pleasure here.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Amendment number 2 simply includes everything that we did last week. So there are sections at the end of the bill that deals with financial transparency, with the Auditor of State's office and the transparency portal. It deals with information from Gateway and Department of Local Government Finance. Those are still removed from the bill. We're not adding that back. Simply what this amendment does is it takes some of the sections that are in the bill. We do a little bit of retooling. We move some things over to different sections so that they apply to the General Assembly more closely, and deal with data access under the Open Records Act a little bit in this amendment. But for the most part, these are not major conceptual changes from the bill as it currently reads. I would appreciate any questions that you might have about the amendment.
Any questions about amendment number 2? Seeing none, can we take the amendment by consent? Consent. We now have an amended bill.
All right. I don't know that there's much else that I can give you a refresher on. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, basically what we're doing is we're codifying an agency that exists currently under executive order. That was done by the previous administration, Governor Pence. What these folks do is they take the rich stores of information that we have in different agencies around state government, they put it together and they make some sense of it to try and solve some complex issues. Some of the projects that are currently in place is an incident reporting with state police so that we can kind of anticipate with changes in weather and other things where an accident might occur. They've got a project with FSSA that they're working on and have worked on in the past that deals with infant mortality and trying to solve that problem using data. So I feel and others feel that this is an important agency. They're doing great work. We need to beef them up and take some of the responsibilities that are under other agencies like the Office of Technology, the Indiana Network for Knowledge, and some of these other things that we've done in the past. Let's consolidate it all into this agency so that all of our data management responsibilities are in one place. We're creating a chief data officer, so we have one person that serves at the pleasure of the governor that is responsible for privacy issues, responsible for making data available on our new website that we're going to be creating, which is the Tiered Access Open Data website. Tiered access, what that means is that we'll have certain data sets from our agencies that we can put up there, and every Hoosier in the state can get access to it. They can see how their government is operating and what we can kind of get a scope of what the problems might be. And then there are other data sets that may have information that is confidential, sensitive, personally identifying information about Hoosiers, and that would be in an upper tier where you would have to, you may be able to get it through research for research purposes, or LSA would be able to get access to it, but we would be protecting that information, and it wouldn't just be available to anybody. LSA, our agent gets some expanded access to data so that when they're doing fiscal notation for our bills, they get access to everything, and they can hopefully help us make better decisions when we're passing legislation. So I'm excited about this bill. I think it's important. It's a good step forward for us if we're going to start talking about doing things in a data-driven way using the information that we have. And I would appreciate your positive support of the bill.
Thank you. Any questions for Representative Ober? Very well, thank you. Steve Key?
Again, Steve Key with the Hoosier State Press Association. We do rise in support of the bill and the concept of what they're trying to do. We initially raised a couple of concerns on what information was going to be included or excluded and how that decision would be made. I've had a very good conversation with Representative Ober, and I think that everybody's working to make it as transparent as possible. I did get a quick peek at Amendment 2 and does seem to address some of the questions that we raised initially, and I know that Representative Ober has said he's more than happy to work with us in making sure that this is as transparent as reasonable as it should be. So we are supportive of moving this bill forward.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Key? Steve, thank you for your testimony. Is there anybody else that would like to testify on House Bill 1470 that did not have a chance to sign up yet? Seeing no one, Representative Ober, would you like to close?
Yeah, I'll make a quick comment. I appreciate the work that was done this summer, Mr. Chairman, in the Summer Study Committee, where a lot of these ideas were kind of vetted out. You and I have been working on this for an extended period of time. It's not ready for prime time yet, but we're still working. I did want to mention that there was a concern that was brought up last week by Representative Shackelford, who is a co-author on the bill, regarding women business enterprises, minority business enterprises, and making sure that there's data available. I've made a commitment to her that we'll keep working on that issue to make sure that she gets an adequate report for her purposes. And so that's I hope that everyone will support the bill and get it moving on the process. Thank you, sir.
Well, Representative Ober, I appreciate you taking the lead on it. I mean, this did take up a lot of time in the Summer Study Committee that I had the opportunity to chair. And for a topic that isn't so easily to understand to people like me, that's hasn't quite wrapped his mind around all this. But when you see the technology that's changing the way it is, the demands that the 6.6 million Hoosiers have of the transparency of our government, it is the way of the future. It's going to be here. It's going to be coming more and more every year, and this will be fluid. I'm sure next year you'll be back needing to do something. So I appreciate your millennial abilities that you have to tackle this issue. So thank you for all of your hard work on it as well. Very good. Thank you. Discussion amongst the committee. Got a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Representative Stemler?
Excused.
Representative Smith?
Excused.
Representative Bartlett?
Excused.
Representative Shackelford?
I just wanted to preface my vote. I am very supportive of the legislation and was happy to go on it. And I'm also supportive that Representative Ober sat down with me and looked at my old legislation for the expenditures that I wanted to capture from procurement and looked at the data that we're currently receiving and how we can improve that. So going forward, I hold him to his commitment that we will get better data and actually include that into this bill and look at that information. So I support.
Representative Mahan?
Yes.
Representative Cook?
Excused.
Representative Pressel?
Yes.
Representative McNamara? Yes. Representative Miller?
Yes.
Representative Cherry?
Yes.
Representative Engelmann?
Yes.
Representative Lucas?
Excused. Can you go check and see if Representative Young wants to vote on this? He's in another committee. While he's checking on that, just a couple announcements for those that are in the audience. You've heard me excuse quite a few people today. They're not here because they don't care or they're disengaged. They're not here because they are at other committees presenting other bills or whatever the case may be. Education, I think I've got